But anyway, as I said, John and I came into marriage with pretty much like ideas. We had both came in with fairly clean buckets, and I see people carrying around buckets of hurt and old haunts and old tapes and old loves and old conditioning, and I see them that no matter how much they try to have a new relationship or a continuing relationship with the person they're with, they don't clean that bucket out to where they see the shiny bottom. And no matter what you put in there, it's going to be like what's in there before, unless you really clean it out. So John and I had both, without each other knowing it, had worked to come together with a clean bucket. The other day I was filling out a form. It's a fun sheet, sort of a profile like they do in the Dallas Morning News, and one of them on myself to give to my company. And one of the questions was, what is your best asset? And you know, you really don't see yourself the way other people see you, but thank goodness, you know, or we'd all be in trouble. But I asked John, I said, I couldn't think of anything, and I said, honey, what's my best asset? And he said, peaceful. And I thought, what a wonderful way for John to see me. And again, I want to say one more time that we each give thanksgiving each day for our life together, and most of all, for our awareness of what we have with one another. We feel like we share God's love, that our love is not necessarily it's a personal love, but it's God's love flowing through us. And I have several little things that you can call them policies or traits or whatever you want to, but one is that to me it doesn't matter who's right as long as it is right, and I hold that in every discussion that we have. I don't, and we don't, I can say we don't because I can speak for John, we don't punch each other's hurt buttons for feelings and all. I'm sure sometimes I'm very trying to John. I'm dyslexic, and he said one time, he said, it's really a challenge and exciting living with Abby. He always adds that. He said, she gives me the most beautiful answers, but they don't have anything to do with the question. So I really don't hear things because the hearing isn't what it was 20 years ago, and I hear things different than most people do. And I was showing him the notes I took down in his class, and I said, I want you to read these notes. I know this isn't exactly what you said, but this is what I wrote down, And we don't judge or keep score, which I think is fabulous. And I carry that on into my friendship with my friends, that I don't keep score, and I don't judge, and I don't talk. And, it stops here. And boy, gossip is so much fun, especially to gossip to your husband. But I found that if I gossip to my husband, he never forgets. And so then if I make up with that person or everything's all right with that person, he's still kind of wondering why that's such a good friend when I was telling him all this gossip stuff. So, and sometime I wrote some notes because I'm used to speaking in front of a bunch of gals. I usually don't speak in front of men and women, so I thought I'm going to be prepared today. But sometimes when I don't know just what to do, and about a situation, any kind of a situation, money or travel or inner relations with the girls in my area, and I'll ask John to help me solve my problem. So what would you do? Tell me. Well, he has a good sense to just listen and not to take charge and not really to tell me what to do. But he encourages me to work through my problem. And when he does this, I always know that I have at that time and will always have his love and his support and all. And what John is the greatest, he is the most wonderful sounding board because he does not judge and he does not keep score. So I can just talk to John and know that I will get a good response, whether, I'm feeling good about something or not. And in the past, way back in the past, I'm so old y'all wouldn't believe how far back this goes. I never thought about being old till they told me I need to retire. But anyway, in the past, I wondered if it would be nice, how nice it would be to have someone to take control and tell you what to do. You know, maybe buy your clothes for you, maybe go shopping with you. I never had that, which is good. But then now that I think about it in this lifetime, none of us need the responsibility of controlling someone else. Just to control our own thoughts and to stay guard at the gate of our own mind is a job enough. So we don't really need to take the responsibility. I think a lot of youth and young marriages and young relationships are based on so many songs. And if you listen to the words of some of these songs, you think, you know why they're in trouble. You know, you made me love you. And I can't live without you. All of these things that are brainwashed with these beautiful lyrics and these beautiful music that these kids build their, that's our song. And I want to go shake them and say, hey, get one that really means something. But in the long run, I consciously, again, I'm standing at the portals of my mind, I consciously try not to dump a problem on John or on others. And I try, again, not to keep it within me, because this can cause much pain, much stress, and much damage. But I just dissolve it in prayer and let it go back to the nothingness from which it came. And the air around our home is pure and clean. Thank you.
Well, I'm not sure how I can improve on that. But I think the things I wanted to share with you today, a lot of it you could feel, I think, from Abby. And that is that we began by creating a safe haven within ourselves, within our home, a safe consciousness, safe environment in which we could both learn and grow and learn the things that each one of us as individual souls had to learn and have to learn. And we use that idea in every service that we have. You've heard Ralph say that we create a safe haven for people here who want to empower themselves to learn and grow and change. And we have always taken it down to the individual level, where we are, in our home, we create this consciousness of openness, of safety, where each one is not afraid to say something, but where the other one can come and help work through a particular situation or through a particular feeling. And as Abby said, one of the ways in which we create this safe haven is no criticism and no judgment about the other person or what they're thinking, or if they're angry. Let's not create any kind of criticism or condemnation. See, because once we do that, you no longer have a safe haven in which to grow, and you begin to keep things inside. And so that's one of the great, I guess, secrets, if you want to call it that, but that's how we began, and that's how we operate today, is always making sure that we have created a safe haven for us all, for both of us. Another thing to remember is that every one of us, you included, has all of the love of God within yourself. That's already a given. You can't change that. It's there. Now, what you can change is the amount that you're willing to let out, the amount that you're willing to express. And as humans, we have so many wonderful ways in which we can express God's love. So you get away from the idea that you have any kind of love of your own to withhold or give, because you don't. But you have this marvelous opportunity to give to another the love of God. And we can put it into human terms. Okay? Compliment each other often. Say, I love you. And just give them a great hug. And let them feel the safety that you're in this loving atmosphere. Tell he or she how much you appreciate them, the things that they do, and make sure that you compliment them on the good things that are happening in their lives as well as in your own, and how you treat each other. Just every once in a while say, I sure do like the feeling I have when I'm with you. This helps both of you to grow in a safe haven, a safe environment. Tell her or him the good that you see in him or her. Tell them about all of the good things that you feel about them. How you enjoy being with them. How you enjoy doing things together. Now there's also, with Abby and I anyway, there are times when we both need to be alone. And we give each other that space. I know particularly when I'm preparing a lesson, I need to be alone. I need to be with my own thoughts. I need to be focusing on what I'm doing. Abby does this with her own business, and many times she needs to be alone to work through whatever it is that she's going to do. And sometimes we need to be alone just for our own meditative thought. And give each other the space and the comfort to do that in. Let each one know what turns you on. What is there that you like that they do with you and for you? We've often heard that in a marriage you should give 50% each party. I don't believe that. I think each person should give 100% of themselves. This is what you are investing into a relationship, which can be called a marriage, or whatever the relationship wants to be. But give 100% of yourself. Because if you do that, you're not waiting for the other party to do something first before you'll do it. We can get into these human kinds of relationships which say, you know, if you would do this or if you would change, I could love you more. Sometimes we send that message. And Abby talked about the hurt button. We all have them. We all have those things within us when you touch it or press it, which you might be saying something that's kind of critical, and we begin to hurt inside. And the one thing Abby and I have learned is you don't press on the hurt button. What happens in humanness, a lot of times we begin to lean on that hurt button because we feel justified. Look what he or she said to me. I'm justified. I'll get back. One of Abby's friends often says, I never get mad, I always get even. And that's when you find the hurt button and just lean on it and press it with all your worth. We don't do that. Occasionally we'll hit a hurt button, but we didn't know that it was there. And you'll find some that you didn't know. Back off. That's not a safe haven. That's not what you're trying to build. And many times we learn to behold the Christ in the other person, that spiritual being that's made in the image and likeness of God, that we all are. Look through the appearance, look past whatever's going on, and know that there is that perfect, lovable, beautiful, wonderful child of God inside, even though they may not be expressing it at the moment. Your job is to look through that appearance and say, I love you. Sometimes that can dispel a great deal of anger, and it'll bring you back into a safe haven. Another thing that Abby and I do is we share the load. And let me explain what I mean by that. For example, we've discovered that Abby doesn't like to grocery shop, and I love it. So I take over the grocery shop probably 99% of the time. Create a safe haven. She doesn't have all this negative energy because I don't want to go do it. And I have the positive energy because I love to do it. Another thing, I don't like to go out and shop in department stores or malls. So Abby doesn't. She likes that. So we kind of, it gives us both a safe haven in which to work because she enjoys it and she gets a great deal of fun out of it. And this is one of the times that I can be alone and do the things that I need to do from an alone point of view. We have both had many experiences. I think, Rick, you mentioned I've only divorced once. That's not true. Or this is their second marriage. That's not true. I went through an awful lot. My first wife passed away when she was 41, the mother of my two girls, and we had a wonderful life together. I was traveling at the time in business, had two small children at home, and I was dealing with a lot of fear, tremendous amount. I felt that I couldn't be responsible away. I should be with my children and so on and so forth. So we tried getting housekeepers, and that didn't work. Eventually I met a lady and married her for all the wrong reasons. I wanted a housekeeper, so I wanted to watch the kids, and guess how I treated her? Just like a housekeeper. It's a wonder she stayed around for a year. I take total and full responsibility for that breakup. But through it, guys, I learned a tremendous amount about myself. And so I call that experience good, because I reached into that experience and I pulled out much that I began to know about myself. I could see the mistakes I had made, and I began to make ways to correct them. Abby had similar, not the same, but similar experiences in a marriage, and through it she learned a great deal about herself. This is what she was telling you about when we came together. We both had pretty well cleaned our buckets. Does that make sense to you? We had gone through a great deal of trauma, pain, suffering, but through it we had learned a tremendous amount that helped us to bring those gifts to a marriage. The gifts that we had learned about life, about people, about ourselves. And we had gone through a lot of the negative aspects of ourselves and had cleaned them up. So that when we came together, it was just a natural, beautiful relationship in which there was a safe haven, always, in which to work and grow through. And that's kind of, I guess, what you would call our secrets, if they are secrets at all. Actually, I hope they're not secrets. It's what Abby and I have done. with our lives to build a relationship, to build a marriage. And I think Abby would agree with me if I use the word investing in our marriage. We invest our highest and best instead of trying to work and bring in negativity and that sort of thing. It just doesn't belong in our marriage. And we help each other work through if we're having particular problems. Abby mentioned that a lot of times. And the one thing I think that Abby taught me was unconditional love. That was a great lesson that I have learned from her in our marriage. And it's been extremely helpful to me. And I continue to learn every day. Learn more about myself, learn more about Abby, learn more about God and my relationship to God as it evolves through the marriage sequence of our life. And we find that within that we have great strength together as well as apart, in which we can take these strengths and these powers that we have developed together and use them to create a wonderful life. Do we always agree? No, don't always agree. Never argue, because we see the right for each person to disagree. We may see things differently. And as Abby said, it's not a case of me or she being right, but what is right? What is the right thing to do? And we can work through that together. I think, I don't know, we've been married 15 years, going on 16. I can't remember that we ever had an argument of anything. Now, that may sound kind of dumb and stupid, but, or dull, but it's not. It's just that it never really is a focus anymore. But we find that we can sit down and we can work through by talking. It doesn't mean that at the end we'll both agree the same way, but we have new thoughts and new ideas to share with each other on a certain thing. And yeah. Incidentally, I'll close with one story. She told you about this picture of a person that she had it on her closet door in her bedroom, not where you could walk in the bedroom and see it. It was on the inside. And she had cut out this picture of the guy, like she said, with the gray hair and the green eyes and so on and so forth. And at the time, when I proposed to her, I was still smoking cigarettes. And she would prefer that I didn't smoke cigarettes, okay? But she never told me to stop. But anyway, she took me back when I proposed and opened her closet door and showed me the picture. And I turned around to her and I said, well, you cut this out from a Marlboro ad and it serves you right. And it's one final thought. Abby is dyslexic. That's another thing. She can't keep a checkbook or do a bank statement. I love to do them. So I pay all the bills and do the bank statement and relieve her of that problem for her. And she's correct. A lot of times I'll ask her a question. She gives me a terrific answer, but it has absolutely nothing to do with the question. Now, instead of criticizing or condemning Abby, we just have a great deal of fun about it, you see, and put her at ease, because she speaks to large crowds all over the country. And she doesn't need somebody that's trying to keep her down. She needs someone to help her, lift her up. And that's how we work together. Rick, is there time for any questions? Or okay. Abby, come on up here so you can answer too if they want. Yeah, go ahead. I will. Thank you. The question is that we seem to be able to handle any difficulty, am I correct? And whatever comes up in life, and he wants to know if we would speak to that as an inner strength or where does it come from? Do you want to answer that? Dale, it's Dale, right? What it is, as far as I'm concerned, I'm sure Abby agrees with me, is that when we came together, we had pretty well clean buckets. We'd gone through a lot of trauma and things like that. We have found within ourselves a great inner strength, and we're learning more about that through this church all the time. And it's an inner strength where there's nothing that can happen that we can't go through together. And I'm sure there's a lot that happens for Abby as well as for me that we can handle by ourselves when it's necessary. But there is the inner strength, there's the inner guidance that we receive. And remember that as spiritual beings, we're one, not two. And so we bring this oneness together to approach the problems of life. And we all have them. And just because we have a great relationship doesn't mean there aren't problems that come to us. Not particularly about our marriage, but sometimes with our children and that sort of thing.
Friends.
And friends, and of course our business and so on and so forth. And so we really have developed, let me say, and continue to develop this inner strength and power. We go to God for the answers.
I can say something now. I think we really, maybe just occasionally we slip, but we don't let what's happening in the outer affect what's happening in the inner. And this is one of my teachings as I'm with anyone, anywhere, 1 or 2,000. Do not let what's in the outer affect what's on the inner. So John and I have been exposed to a lot of soapy soap operas through our families and friends and all, but we have not let that affect our relationship. We have not taken sides. We don't. I'll say something. We have a son-in-law that has a mother that is a mother to always tell the children what to do. A lot of people call them control people. And so he told me several years ago, he said, you know, I didn't think you and John cared much for us when we first married. And I said, why would you think that? And he said, you never told us what to do. And so he came to respect that, and he knows that no matter what they do, and they have really led a soapy soap opera, not anything illegal or anything, but, you know, just with their decisions of where to live and what to do with their careers, that we have never interfered. And they really appreciate that because they know now they can come to us, and it's like in our marriage, they are safe with us.
Does that answer your question, Dale? Yes. Rick?
You mentioned about needing time apart
Uh-huh.
to be spacing fingers together.
Right.
How do you convey that to your partner without offending?
Okay. The question is that we give each other space to be alone, and he says, how do you convey that to the other person?
It's a teaching process. Like when you're sitting at the dining room table and you're really concentrating, and he comes up and does something you really like kisses you on the neck, and you're concentration is gone, it's very hard to say, honey, I wish you wouldn't interfere. So I started treating him exactly like I wanted to be treated in our early marriage. I do not walk to John's office and walk in. I'll walk to the door, and when he looks up, and when he's through and looks up, then I go into his office at the house. So now John does the same thing. He bypasses me if my head is down and I'm working, and does not kiss me on the nape of the neck. But later.
I think we communicated just by the way she said it, Rick, that and we've talked about the times that we need by ourselves and everything, talked it out, so that we communicated, and we knew it wasn't because there wasn't any love or didn't want to be, but there are times when we need to be by ourselves. And the other person has that same need. And this is part of spiritual growth. This is personal now, I'm telling you. I don't know how everybody feels about it, but personally for me, there are times when I just need to be by myself to make this inner contact. Okay?
Excuse me, go ahead.
Heather?
I was just going to say, we used to have a little car problem. John is not the quiet, he is a different person behind the wheel. I mean, he is a race driver. That's his inner self coming out. This 16-year-old kid comes out when he gets behind the wheel. So I would say to John, not that he made me nervous, and your driving makes me nervous, but I would say to him, I get so nervous when you go 20 miles over the speed limit. Did I ever get nervous? I ripped the thing out of in that brand new Cadillac that you hold on up here. I ripped that dude out, just hanging on. So that was several years ago. So now, most of the time, if we're on a trip, John just gets in the passenger side and I drives, and he does his prayer work and studies or gets in the back seat. So we've worked that out, but that was a real nerve-wracking thing for me. I'm sorry. Go ahead now.
She says there's a 3-year-old in me that comes out once in a while, and it's not pretty, folks. Heather?
I heard something in Dale's question, and you hit part of it, but the other part is what John called the C word.
The pardon?
The C word, commitment.
Okay.
And what I heard you use the term investment.
Mm-hmm.
And how did the two of you, what resources did you bring to develop that level of commitment and investment?
Okay. The question is, what resources did Abby and I bring to develop this commitment or investment into the marriage? Well, for me, it was a matter of
Energy?
well, spiritual energy. This is what I'm trying to get at. It's trying to live life from the consciousness of God from within instead of from the outer. Okay? We brought our gifts to the marriage and invested those gifts: peace, love, joy, harmony, order, things like that. We already had those pretty well established when we came together, because we had gone through many similar experiences of pain and suffering where we were learning all this stuff that we shouldn't do and developing. So we brought these gifts already, and now we're just letting them grow together. I don't know whether that answers your question or not.
Not quite. But yes, you brought them. What made you decide to commit them?
I wanted to spend I wanted to wake up with John every morning. And I wanted to share my life with him. I did not know that a love that we have even existed. If you told me 20 years ago there was a love like this, I would say, yeah, yeah, in the books and in the movies. I did not know that people held hands because of the feeling. I just thought they held hands to keep up with each other. And when we married, 16 years of single life, and a wonderful single life. I had this son and just a lot of good. But I would not say the word marriage. When John proposed to me, I said, we'll do all the legal stuff, but I'm going to call it's a merger. And he had a problem with that. Then he finally understood it was more of a merger. A marriage is a merger, not only of cup towels and salad dressing and chairs and tables and things, but it's a merger. And that was what I wanted, was to merge with someone, like two companies merge together. And John has always, the thing that I love about him, he said when he has a problem, he has a board of directors and God sits at the head. And then he has different other people, some people that aren't even living now at his board of directors, and he will go to them in his mind and ask them. And so all of this good stuff like this he brought to me, the unconditional love that I see everyone, literally see everyone as a perfect child of God. I never condemn a person, only their actions. And see, those are lessons that I've learned through being in the muck and mire. You don't learn if you haven't had some bad times. And we don't need to keep on having the bad times. That's the beauty of this life. We can grow through our problems and errors and blessings.
Could you maybe touch on, even though that is for all those of us tonight, the need to try to control each other?
No, that's not in my nature, so I
Okay,
have no
the
problem.
question is, do we have a need to control each other? How do you handle that?
Maybe some suggestions for those of us who do that.
Well,
It's a big responsibility.
I tried it in another marriage, didn't work, and we'd pretty well worked through that need to control another. See, you can't change another person. That's the thing that you each have to know. I can't change Abby at all, and she can't change me. But we both together can create an environment in which we both want to make changes that we want to make. I'm not trying to make changes that Abby wants to change in me. See, I gave up smoking not because she wanted me to, but because I wanted to. Because for me it was good, it was best.
It's healthy.
And she created the atmosphere to help me do that.
Let me tell you how I did it. See, I know about secondhand smoke. I've never smoked, so it's not virtuous that I don't smoke now. I've never had to give that up, never had to give up drinking because I never drank. So every time John would light a cigarette, doesn't he know about my lungs and things? So he didn't know that I felt that way. And I'm sure this, that would be a hurt button. But what I did was, when John picked up a cigarette, I surrounded him with God's love and light and the protection. And I prayed. So what did that do? That didn't make him stop, but it made me a better person when he pulled out that cigarette, so that he did not feel the tension or the stress, or I did not feel the tension or the stress. So I don't even I've never even tried to control the children. The dog was out of the question, so I gave up on that 6 weeks. I'm not a control person, and I'm certainly not one that can be controlled. So, the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The flip side of that is, don't let them do to you what you wouldn't do to them. A lot of people don't remember that.
Does that answer your question, Terry? Rick? How did I quit? I'll tell you how I did. Another fellow and I, he worked for me when I was in the insurance business, and he said, we both need to stop smoking, and I'd been trying to stop, a couple hundred times a day. But he said, I've got this physician that will hypnotize us. He said, are you willing? And I said, sure. So the physician came to my house one morning and did his deal. I never went under or anything, but he made suggestions in a what would they call it, alpha state or something like that. Came back that afternoon, did the same thing. Came back the next morning and did the same thing. He said, okay, now go smoke all you want. I smoked for the rest of that day and quit. I didn't like it anymore. It didn't feel good, and I just said the heck with it. And I quit. I've never had a cigarette since. That was May 29th, 1980. See, I can remember that.
When's my birthday?
10-4, good buddy. And anyway, the other guy he went to his house and did the same thing. He's still smoking. So it isn't an automatic. You have to want to from within, pretty much. Mm-hmm. But the suggestions in the state that I was in were extremely helpful. And when I went back to try to smoke like I used to, it just didn't taste good. It wasn't good at all. Yuck. Yeah, Rick?
John, throughout both of your conversations, I feel like you use principles that had in the church here.
Oh.
Tremendous impact on the evolution.
Yeah. The question is, did the teachings of unity have an impact upon our marriage? And I'd say absolutely, no question about it. And it still does. It still does. We learn something new all the time. Get a different feel, as you grow, you'll see things differently. Now, I think every one of you probably had the experience when you've had a book that you wanted to read and you started reading it and it didn't make any sense at all, you didn't like it, thought it was terrible. You put it up, a year or so later you take it down and it's the greatest thing you've ever read in your life. What's happened? Nobody came in and changed the words. See, you changed.
It's time.
Okay, are we through?
Yeah, but we're going to invite you back
Oh, you are?
to give the meditative prayer.
Okay.
But thank you both very
Okay,
much.
thanks.
Thank you.